Did you see it? There were 5 inverter decks, 5 of them in the top 8 of the Star City Games Open event. Oh my god. And what do you know? There was 2 in the finals, and that meant that Dimir Inverter won the Star City Open. Everyone, this is Nikachu, Merfolk Master, and some time has passed now since, the Players Tour. We were looking at Dimir Inverter and the Lotus Breach deck, and we want to take some time to see if the format could figure itself out. Are there enough answers to beat these things? And now as time goes on, it actually looks like Dimir Inverter is getting better and better and better, and we got to talk about how, what's the future of this deck? Is Wizards going to take huge action against it? Should we ban anything? Is it really as bad as it looks? We're going to talk about all this stuff today. Because Inverter, at the very least, has inverted the metagame. I mean, if you look at the top 10 decks that I told everyone that they had to beat like 1 month ago before Theros Beyond Death was printed, I mean, it's completely different now. I mean, before you had like number 1, number 2 was like the red decks, the mono red, the mono black, and now they would be closer to like number 10. They're like really far down on the board, and the stuff like Spirits has moved up to the top, and of course, stuff like actually Black Green X, the Sultai decks, the Sultai Delirium decks, and now of course the Inverter deck, which never existed before, is now taking the top spots. So a lot of the metagame has completely shifted, and I mean, you could look at it as a good thing, or you could look at it as a bad thing. At the very least, it's completely changed the metagame, but I still think actually Pioneer is pretty diverse. If you looked at the top, like all the top decks that finished at that SCG Open, it's still pretty diverse. I mean, you still got Blue-White Control. You Mono-White Devotion, which got huge upgrades in Theros Beyond Death. So last few sets have really helped the Mono-White Devotion deck. We see Golgari Aggro, we see Sultai. So Sultai is like the new Jund. It's Black-Green X, but we're playing blue. You see Spirits in both the form of Bant and Azorius. Of course, we see Lotus Breach. We see the Heroic deck, which was on the fringe before and now is still in the game. And we still see Mono Black Aggro, we see Mono Red Aggro. And for the most part, I mean, this is still a lot of decks. This is a lot of archetypes that are viable and playable in Pioneer, making it deep into a very large open event. It's very similar to how Modern started. You gotta remember that back in the day, I mean, it was like Twin, Affinity, Pod, and then maybe a close second beneath all those decks was like Jund, when Deathrite Shaman was still legal. And so those were the super dominant decks. Those were the ones you're going to see a lot of play, like a ton. And then there's a bunch of just random stuff at the bottom. Once in a while you'd see an Infect deck or a Merfolk deck or Scape Shift or something like that. And that's exactly the same makeup that we see right now in Pioneer. I think a lot of people are very upset about Pioneer because the metagame is now just very different than how it was like from the beginning of the format to Theros Beyond Death. Like there's a lot of archetypes that are just like not around anymore. Like Blue-Red Prowess or the Soul Flare deck, or just regular Black-Green Golgari mid-range. A lot of these things just don't exist anymore. And they've been replaced by completely different archetypes. I think the only remnants around are still like Spirits, Mono Red Aggro, Mono Black. But for the most part, we got a completely different metagame. You have completely different character. So, as usual, people just hate change. Change sucks, especially if you bought into a deck very early on, some sort of version of Mono Green Devotion or Mono Green Ramp. Those things don't exist right now, or maybe they just need to discover their changes, the modifications that they need to make in order to compete in today's metagame. So maybe those things still have to be figured out. But those were big decks at the time. Those were big decks for the last 3 months, and now where are they? They're just gone. They're just absolutely gone. So, is Dimir Inverter too strong? Does something have to be done about it? Well, we look at Lotus Breach. I mean, the story's been told by Lotus Breach. It's the new affinity, all right? Lotus Breach is the new affinity. And what I mean by that, I mean, it plays more like Storm than Affinity, but what I mean by that is it is the deck that if you are not prepared for it with your sideboard, it's going to take over the tournament, all right? If you don't have anything to keep it in check, if people are not packing the sideboard cards for it, it's going to destroy everybody. But if you're prepared, if you've got the sideboard cards, if you've got the Eidolon of Rhetoric, if you've got Damping Sphere, then the deck is going to be trash. It's going to be defeated. But what sideboard cards do we have for Dimir Inverter? Because I think the problem with Dimir Inverter is it's such a good interactive deck. It's such a good control. It is Splinter Twin. It's literally Splinter Twin in that it is a good control deck, but it's also a very good combo deck. And when you've got those two things that meet together and they kiss and they make this Dimir Inverter baby, it's pretty close to unstoppable. The thing is that they can adapt, I think, better than people can adapt against them. We've already seen that at the Players Tour where the Dimir Inverter decks were packing things like Pack Rat. Alright, so you think that they're going to be on just a control combo plan, but they actually can go super aggro on you. If you remove too much of your creature removal, or all of it, because like why would you think you would need it post-board, then they play this Pack Rat and they just completely steamroll you because you weren't prepared for something like that. So they're taking those sort of they can adapt to the metagame, I think, better than people can adapt to the Dimir Inverter deck. That is the biggest problem that we have here with Dimir Inverter. And people are getting better. People are just getting better with the deck. People are making better use of their graveyard, knowing how to use Jace, the Jace Planeswalker, when to put cards in their graveyard, when to put cards in their opponent's graveyard. They're incrementally getting better advantages. We hear on Twitter about how many people love the Dimir Inverter deck because they keep getting better at it. There's so much to consider. There's so many finer niche details, nuances to this archetype, especially in the mirror. It's a huge skill war, and that's dangerous. That's actually super dangerous to anyone who's trying to prepare for this. It would be much more safe and satisfying to hear that it hit a ceiling, and now there's other ways for people to catch up. But if people are adjusting for Dimir Inverter, and Dimir Inverter is just adjusting way faster than anyone else can catch it, that's bad news. That's not a good thing. And that's basically what happened with Splinter Twin in Modern. Splinter Twin could adapt to everyone else's adaptations better than you could adapt to the Splinter Twin deck. And there were a lot of nuanced interactions that, as a skilled player, as you keep getting better and better, the ceiling, there is no ceiling. The sky's the limit with an archetype like this. And that's what we're seeing here with Dimir Inverter. So I think people are just getting better with the Dimir Inverter deck. They're going to find more innovations to beat out anyone who's trying to compete against this thing. So now the question is, what do you do with it? What are we going to do about Dimir Inverter? Do you axe the deck? And in my opinion, we absolutely should not kill off the Dimir Inverter deck. First off, I think it's a really cool deck. I think it's a really cool design. I think it would be very unfair to just outright ban the thing right now at the period of time right now that people are buying into Pioneer decks, because anyone who bought into the deck at the grace period of Pioneer, when they said they were going to, like, I don't know how to put it, maybe not grace period, but like the period of bannings. Wizards warned everyone, we're going to harshly ban everything, and if we need to, we're going to ban the entire archetype. That's what happened to Felidar Guardian, all right? I don't think Felidar Guardian got banned because the deck was necessarily too strong. It was banned because no one else would play anything, and they didn't want that to happen so early in the existence of the Pioneer format. They were just forcing people to try other stuff. So that's why Felidar Guardian got banned. But right now, we're outside of that banning period. And if something like Dimir Inverter is going to get banned, I think it's going to get banned in like 2 years, 2 or 3 years, if it has to. I think it's a very creative deck. I think it's skill intensive. I think it's very interesting. I think it belongs. I really genuinely think that the Dimir Inverter deck belongs in Pioneer. Therefore, we should not touch Dimir Inverter, probably not touch Thassa's Oracle or the Jace Wielder of Mysteries. Those things should all stay. But I do believe that this is finally the deck that has broken Dig Through Time. And now, I know there's like heated debates on both sides. Fact of the matter is, Dig Through Time is not a reasonable Magic card. It's been banned in all the other formats for a very good reason. And I know some people who are really radical about it say, Nikachu, you gotta put it into context. The format has so many more cards in Legacy and Modern. That's why Dig Through Time got banned. Look, Dig Through Time only existed in the first place because it was play tested for a format that was about 2 years wide. That's it. That's it. They knew it was safe. They play tested the card. Even when there was fetch lands in that format, they knew Dig Through Time could not be abused. It was fine for Standard. There's no way in hell you can tell me that this card is reasonable in a card pool that's going to get larger and larger and larger. And in my opinion, the card pool already is large enough that this card is now broken in half by finally the Dimir Inverter deck. I don't believe for a second it's Dimir Inverter that breaks Dig Through Time. I think it is the other way around. And without Dig Through Time finding the quick combo pieces, it's going to be way harder for the Inverter deck to assemble their combo. They're going to have to put a lot more work into it. They're going to need, first off, it's going to be harder for them to clear their graveyard to make use of the Inverter of Truth to, you know, flip the graveyard into their library. But not only that, like to have an empty library, but not only that, they're probably going to have to use some sort of replacement like Tasigur, which also eats up their graveyard, but also potentially can help their find their combo pieces, you know, activate it, find Thassa's Oracle or some crap like that. That's probably what they're going to have to do, or find the Inverter of Truth. But that's a lot slower, it's a lot more clunky, and you're not going to have these games. Like, I'm playing against Dimir Inverter in Pioneer, and some of these games are super fast. They're just super crazy about getting that combo online. They've got the combo in hand, they just slam Dimir Inverter, put cards back on top of their library, and then slam Thassa's Oracle or Jace Wielder of Mysteries, and they just go for it. Just go for it when they can. So Dig Through Time is going to slow this way down. Dig Through Time is a really stupid card in this archetype, and I think it's going to make the archetype a lot more fair. And if it still isn't fair, you know, you can still ban Thassa's Oracle or something going into the future. But I think it's a very interesting, good deck. It has a lot of personality. I like decks with personality, and I also like that people are attacking the deck in a completely different direction. We do see play out of things like Nimble Obstructionist, which is trying to counter the trigger when either Thassa's Oracle enters the battlefield or Dimir Inverter enters the battlefield. And we also things like I think it's Hushwing Griffin, a flash creature, white and 2 colorless, enters the battlefield, and creatures that enter the battlefield don't trigger. So we are seeing people try to attack on a different axis, a different angle than usual. And what's cool about these things is they're not removal spells. So they're actually creatures, they're actually threats at the very least, proactive way of going about it. So I think Dimir Inverter is a deck that should stay. I do believe that Dig Through Time should go, because it's inevitable. Look, you just give it enough time, some other deck is going to break Dig Through Time. And it's going to be a good question, like, should Treasure Cruise go with it? Because it's the same deal. Eventually, Treasure Cruise is going to get broken too. It is inevitable, all right? It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And it comes down to, should we preemptively ban the cards that we know deserve to be banned? Or are we just going to let decks abuse them and make us pissed, and then we rage at Wizards? Ban Treasure Cruise! Why didn't you ban Treasure Cruise in the first place? You knew it was a problem, you knew it, and now we have to wait for you to ban the damn thing. Because, like, of course, Dimir Inverter could also just play Treasure Cruise, and you know what? Raw card advantage is still useful in a deck like that, and very likely that will be the go-to card. So, Dig Through Time, I think, should go. Treasure Cruise, I mean, I think those 2 cards are not reasonable Magic cards, all right? They're completely unreasonable. And that's what I have to say. I think Dimir Inverter probably, I think the Pioneer metagame is good. I think it's fine. I think the people who are just pissed are just because their deck might have been made obsolete over the last few changes. Is Dimir Inverter too good? Probably. We should bring it down just a little bit. Just the unreasonable cards, but I think the combo should stay in the format. But if you have any other opinions, let me know in the comments section below. This is Nikachu, Merfolk Master, talking about Dimir Inverter's future in Pioneer.